Yes, my friends, this is a Jedi video about Jesus. Now, I know there are quite a few religious folks watching this, and you may be wondering, what is a pagan? Godless heathen like me making a video referring to anything remotely related to Christianity. What blasphemous, sanctimonious asininity could I possibly attempt to pontificate about that would hold any significant intellectual or spiritual value for the rest of us? Well, what I will say first is that even though I may not entirely believe in what a lot of you do, one thing that I have believed for a long time was that regardless of your religious or spiritual predilections, in the spirit of being antithetical to intellectual or ideological rigidity, we can all learn at least a little something from the timeless teachings of the man himself. And if 2020 taught us anything, my friends, we are most certainly in a time where the conscious application of these teachings could help us become a society of people who are much more amicable in our everyday interactions and conjunctive in our efforts to make the world a better place for everyone. Now, obviously, there are a lot of Jesus' teachings we could refer to that would facilitate more positive interpersonal ventures. And yes, I understand that all these have already been subject to the interpretation of countless biblical, religious, and philosophical scholars the world over, literally over the course of centuries, and can be found to have many different layers of meaning to them. For the purposes of this video, I will be giving only a condensed version of my interpretations of the ones that have had the most profound effect on me personally, and that I believe we would all do well to remember from time to time. However, should you feel that they are somehow erroneous, or you believe that you have a much more profound interpretation, I implore you to please feel free to enlighten us all in the comments section. So, here we go. In no particular order, first things first, the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. My friends, it doesn't get much better than this one. You've certainly already heard this one a million times by now. One of the simplest things a person can do to create positive interactions and relationships with other people. Treat people the way you feel you should be treated. Or even as it is said in Confucianism, where this is often referred to as the silver rule, sort of an equal but opposite approach, an ethical balance, if you will. Never impose on others what you would not choose for yourself. Timeless wisdom, my friends, as succinct and breviloquent in its presentation as it is voluminous in its potential to make your interpersonal relationships over the course of your lifetime so much more fulfilling. If you take absolutely nothing enriching from any of my videos, which I'm sure for many of you are usually a complete and total apostasy, at least take to heart this one and make a conscious effort to apply it to your everyday life. Pretty straightforward there, I think. So now, on to the next one. Judge not, lest ye be judged. My friends, this is obviously a tough one for most of us, as it is an extremely easy and for some people a somehow sickly gratifying thing to point out the faults, mistakes, or any of the moral failings and ethical aberrations of others. This phrase has certainly also been used almost tactically by people who might be considered morally bankrupt to preemptively absolve themselves of castigation for the perpetration of any form of general malfeasance. Now, my friends, as such is life, it's almost inevitable that at some point you will have to personally confront someone that you know about their abhorrent behavior. So, as I personally have understood it, this is not to say that should someone in your life say or do something that you find to be objectively deplorable, that you're simply not allowed to speak on it or confront them, or else now you're a hypocrite, right? That's usually how I see this interpreted, but also understand that there's judging, yes, which also implies complete condemnation. But there's also simply coming to a logical conclusion about someone's moral standing based on factual evidence gathered from astute observations and perspicaciousness in regard to their behavior. The way I tend to see this best applied is, if someone says or does something you find to be legitimately pernicious, if you're going to confront them about it, do this from a place of love, altruism, and benevolence. Make it an opportunity to impart learning and improvement of your fellow humans. This, my friends, is what the world needs more of right now. It's the simple fact that, hey, at the end of the day, we're all human. We've all made mistakes. However, you have to remember always as you navigate this to have the mental, spiritual, and also very important personal comprehensibility to know that if you yourself are living a life of unrepentant debauchery, unbridled licentiousness, and moral destitution, the grounds on which your intentions of judging someone stand, whether malicious or compassionate, may be considered dubious at best. So, with that said, we have two particular stories about Jesus that have always resonated deeply with me, which I feel perfectly exemplify what Jesus said about judging and doing unto others. Okay, there is the story of Jesus and the woman brought before him who was caught in the act of adultery. The Pharisees brought this woman in. They made her stand before everyone and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery." And now, this sort of thing is certainly a big deal even today, but the punishment for it back then was stoning. It's a tough situation, and for the first time I heard this story, I was sure he was going to say something along the lines of, "Yes, stone her. She has sinned before God, and to hell she will go. I am Jesus, I have spoken." Instead, he handles it much more masterfully. He says, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." At that point, the crowd starts to clear out until it's just Jesus and the woman. He asks her, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" She says no. And then Jesus says, "Neither do I." Now, second story. This is a story where Jesus was on the cross along with two other criminals who were being crucified alongside him. One of the criminals says to Jesus, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." As for Jesus' reply, well, I'll tell you again first what he did not say. Jesus did not say, "You, sir, are just another dirty criminal, probably on drugs or something. And because you're a criminal, probably on drugs, you deserve to be killed by these men, and when you die, you will not be going to heaven." My friends, what he does say is, despite surely knowing that this man had obviously made some questionable life choices to find himself in such a situation, he says, "I tell you the truth. Today you will be with me in paradise." My friends, there's a lot to unpack here. And what is to be unpacked, I believe, is incontrovertibly relevant to our everyday lives here in the 21st century. So I'll leave you to it. Once again, I'm not strictly Christian, but I have long been an admirer of the Jesus that I've always heard about in the Bible, because he was a man of the people. And he didn't let a lot of things get in the way of helping people in need. And I would say that in that example, for us to be our very best, not only as a society, but as a species, we cannot facilitate a culture or ideology that glorifies through a complete lack of empathy, and compassion towards our fellow humans, being overly discourteous and judgmental to others, one that readily refuses food for the hungry, drink for the thirsty, and healing for the sick. That's all for this installment, my friends. For my Christian brothers and sisters out there, God bless. As for the rest of you, always remember, there is no ignorance. There is knowledge. May the Force be with you.